So this guy tried to rob me. And what do? I go on a date with him. 2 years ago, I returned home from my father's funeral. As soon as I opened the door to my apartment, a guy holding a crowbar came out from my kitchen holding my television. I live in the city, so robberies are pretty common. The guy began shouting at me, and he clumsily dropped my television and began holding the crowbar like it was a baseball bat. I was so stunned and I didn't know what was happening, so I didn't even move. The guy screamed at me to empty my pockets. From the stress of the last few days with my father passing away, I simply started crying. Not out of fear at what was happening necessarily, but because this was literally the worst time of my life. The worst moment, the worst minute, the worst second. While crying hysterically, I gave the guy my wallet. I just sat on my floor and hugged my knees and told him through tears, "Take whatever you want." He hesitated, looked me up and down. He dropped my wallet and sat down beside me. Immediately, he began to comfort me. He began to apologize and he put my TV back on the table, told me it wasn't damaged. He told me that he lost his job and that his mom needed medicine that he could not afford and they were homeless. He told me all this while I just wailed. I cried for my father who was lost. I cried for my future, for it was uncertain. And I cried because my home had been intruded on the most violent way. For a good 10 minutes, I just sat on that cold floor with the guy who had every intent to rob me, telling me that it would be okay and he was sorry. He begged me not to call the police. I just started screaming at him to get out. He ran away so fast, he left his crowbar. I threw it after him as he ran down the street. Well, 2 days later, I come home from work and he's sitting in front of my door. I was so terrified that I pulled out my phone, but he had this look on his face of, I'm not sure how to describe it, remorse, regret. He told me that he told his mom what he did. His mom made me some soup. He handed me this tiny little wrapped bowl in tinfoil. Again, I was stunned and overwhelmed and angry that I slapped the bowl from his hands and it shattered on the floor. I told him to leave or I was calling the police. He left. I remember he looked upset as I left the soup and shattered bowl outside my door, almost as a warning for him to never come back. About 3 months after that, I got a note in my mail slot from the guy. He told me his mother had passed away and that he was no longer homeless and that he had a job. He wanted to repay me for breaking into my apartment. He wrote down his address, told me that I was welcome to break into his place if I wanted, but he didn't have much stuff. This all overwhelmed me. I threw away the letter, but I remembered his address. I remember walking by there one day. Out of curiosity, it was a ratty apartment building across the city. He was walking up to his room and he saw me. He waved. I turned away and left, and he ran after me, apologizing again. Told me that he never meant to do what he did. He showed me the program from his mother's funeral that he kept in his wallet. He wasn't lying. She was real. He was real. He was a real person. I don't know what it was, but I believed him. We slowly began to grow together as people. I can't describe it. After a year of maintaining communication and learning about who he was, he enrolled in a local community college and began taking courses to earn credits before applying to university. I helped him study for his history class a lot. He's great at math and science, though. I never invited him over to my apartment. However, no matter how much I got to know him, I was still afraid of him. And he knew that. He knew I could not trust him. But tonight, we went out for coffee because he said he had an exam in his World CIV class. When I got there, he said he forgot his book. We just talked for a bit. We laughed, and then he told me he wanted to cook for me. On a whim, I decided to invite him to my apartment. After picking up some things from the grocery store, he came on over. I was so nervous that I was shaking in my boots. He noticed, he squeezed my hand, and then he made dinner. It was amazing. We talked, we laughed, we sat on the floor, and we watched a movie on the TV he tried to steal. We made jokes about it. And then he told me that he missed his mom. I gave him a hug and he left. I don't know what I feel, but I do know that I can't give up on people anymore. Some people just have the crap end of life. Maybe things have a way of working themselves out, and I miss my father. Hey, so I posted a couple days ago about how I went on a date with this guy who tried to rob me. This is just a quick follow-up, nothing major. Last night I showed him the post and some of the comments from you guys. He was a little apprehensive about this place, and the fact that I shared this with the entire world. But the comments really made him so happy. He wanted me to thank all of you, and I tried to get him to make a post of his own, but he thinks that it's too weird. Plus, he considers himself a, quote, bad speller. I just wanted to update everyone with this little unimportant tidbit. My dad's birthday is in a few weeks. I always have to prepare myself for it year-round, really. But this year is different, because I know I have people to support me, especially a really close new friend who came, well, I'd like to say, out of nowhere. But he really just came out of my kitchen holding a crowbar. Oh yeah, one more thing. When I showed him the post, he looked up at me and went, "Wait, it was a date?" And I got so embarrassed. Then he laughed and told me that he was relieved, because he thought it was a date. We haven't talked about anything else along the lines of dating in the future. I just wanted to extend my gratitude, my thanks, and my love, as well as his to you all. Thank you so much. Final update of the story. I've been trying to write this for the past 3 months, but I always kept getting busy. I truly don't know what to say because so much has transpired in the last 6 months since I wrote all this down for the first time. I want to say this for me to get this off my chest. I cared about him. I cared for him. I did. I can't deny that. In January, right after the new year started, I got a phone call at 2:30 in the morning from him. He was in jail. He and 2 of his friends were arrested for public intoxication and possession of drug paraphernalia. He wanted me to bail him out. I'm a teacher living on a teacher's salary. I said no, I could not. This is when things fell apart. Before then, he and I have been very close. Incredibly close. We spent Christmas together. I did not have enough money for a plane ticket home, so I stayed in the city. He came over, we cooked, watched movies, and before Christmas, we spent Thanksgiving together. I helped him study, I helped him get his finances in order. He had no idea how to do taxes and had to do all the adult stuff, as he said. But I noticed I started doing things I did not normally do. He would come over in the middle of the night, visibly panicked, and asked if he could stay with me. I let him, no questions asked. I stopped asking questions because I wanted to believe that he was a good person and everything was fine. He started asking me that if, quote, others asked about him, I would lie and say I don't know him. This scared me, but I assumed it was about work stuff and I wanted to be his work stuff. He was released from jail about a week later and he did not talk to me. I called his apartment. Nothing. I came home from work one day and a woman was waiting outside my door. She appeared disheveled. She was wearing a tank top and flip-flops in mid-January in the Northeast. It was cold. When I tried to key into my apartment, she started verbally attacking me. She told me to stay away from him like she owned him. She told me that she knew what I did to him and that I would get what's coming. She left. I was scared out of my mind. Before calling the police, I decided to call his apartment one last time. He answered. I told him about the woman and he apologized and said he was seeing her. He did not intend for her to come over and interfere. But that led me to another question. How did she know where I live? And how many others had he told where I lived? He hesitated before answering, and I remember that. He just said he was sorry. I immediately packed an overnight bag, grabbed my most valuable items, and went to stay in a hotel. I used my credit card, my only in case of emergencies card, because I no longer felt safe because of him. I came back to my apartment the next day. Everything was fine. He came over to apologize, and I told him to get out. I started crying. When I'm angry, I cry. He tried to hug me, but I remembered picking up a piece of wood. I had a dismantled IKEA shelf to protect myself. I demanded to know what he was doing, and he told me he was selling drugs. He told me that he, quote, had to do it because he knew people would hurt him. Lies, I guess. I don't know. I told him to get out and never want to see him again, etc., etc. He got angry, threatened to come back with his friends, and I was racked with guilt for trusting him. He apologized again and said he was sorry. I was questioning everything about him. I pushed him out and locked the door. The teaching program I'm a part of rotates teachers in and out of schools across the country. Last year, I put in a request to move across the country to be closer to home. 2 weeks after this encounter with him, I found out that my request was accepted and I was set to leave in March. My apartment was broken into and vandalized in early February. At night, he would come and knock on my door. I would call the police, but he would always leave before they got there. His guys started to harass me. Nothing was ever stolen, just broken. They broke a glass bottle my dad made for me when I was 6. He knew how much that meant to me. It was shattered. The week before I left, I saw him outside of my building, so I called the police. He was walking over to me, and I remember having this fiery rage in me. It was his impassionate red angry heat that washed over me, and I took my keys, which are on my lanyard, and I just started hitting him. I ended up cracking his eye socket. When the police questioned him, they realized he was the one that was harassing me. He was wanted for a myriad of other charges. After he fell down, after I cracked his eye down socket with my keys, I started kicking him. I just wanted him to die. I really did. Then I thought about what my dad would think. But then I realized, I'm not my dad. I'll never be him. I'm different. This is different. People are different. Not all of them are good, but some of them are. I am good. I'm a good person. Right now, I'm sitting in my apartment in a brand new city, and it's warm. Rent's cheaper, and I live in a neighborhood of old people. They're nice, though. They love that I teach children and makes them feel safe, I guess. Some days I leave my front door open and let in a breeze. I'm never afraid. The beach is literally a 7-minute walk. I've timed it from my back door, and I'm happy. So, I'm putting this to rest. It's done. It's over. I'm tired. I'm posting this, and I'm not checking back anymore. I just wanted to tell someone because no one in my personal life even knew this was happening. I still can't believe it happened, but it did, and it's done. Alright, so here's a comment that shares a little bit of a tidbit. Yeah, I kind of felt irritated that OP was deluding herself continuously and putting herself in such an unsafe situation. Also, I have a feeling her father would not be okay with any of this. Like, taking people in from the back of your truck from prison to their homes is one thing. Letting a guy who tried to break into your house into your life and dating them is another. Alright guys, so let me know your opinions on this. I know the story is absolutely absurd. If someone broke into my apartment, I would never think about dating them. I'm calling the police immediately. But let me know your thoughts on this one, so drop them down below. And the next story we're going to look at is an Am I the A-hole story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife the lock on my daughter's door does not get removed till my brother-in-law and his daughters are out of this house? If you're not subscribed to the channel, you know what to do. Here's the next story. My brother-in-law, Sammy, lost his home shortly after his divorce 10 months ago. He moved in with us and brought his twin daughters, Olivia and Sloane, with him a couple months ago. His sister, my wife, and I have one daughter, Zoe, and she and her cousins aren't close, but they get along fine. Olivia and Sloane have no respect for Zoe's privacy, and I mean none. They used to walk into a room and take everything they get their hands on. Makeup, phone accessories, clothes, school laptop, etc. Zoe complained a lot, and I've already asked the girls to respect Zoe's privacy and stop taking things. My wife and Sammy saw no issue with this. After all, they're girls, and this is typical teenage girl behavior. I completely disagree. Last straw was when Zoe bought a $60 MAC makeup kit that looks like one of those paint sets that she saved up for a month. And one of the girls, Sloane, took it without permission and ruined it by mixing shades together while using it. I don't know much about makeup, but that's what Zoe said when she found the kit on her bed, and was crying. I told my wife, and she said she'd ask Sloane to apologize, but I got Zoe a lock after I found she was moving valuable belongings out of the house because of this incident. Sammy and his daughter saw the lock, and let me tell you, they were not happy. The girls were extremely upset. Sammy asked about it, and I straight up told him. He said, quote, "My daughters aren't thieves. It's normal that girls the same age borrow each other's stuff." He said Zoe could easily get another makeup kit for $15 from Walmart, and should not even be buying expensive adult makeup in the first place, and suggested my wife take care of this defect in Zoe's personality, trying to appear older than she is. He accused me of being overprotective and babysitting Zoe with this level of enablement. I told him this is between me and my wife, but she shamed me for putting a lock on Zoe's door for her cousins to see and prevent them from, quote, spending time with her, saying I was supposed to treat them like daughters. Then demanded I remove it, but I said this lock does not get removed until her brother and his daughters are out of our house. Well, she got mad and said I was implying we kicked them out, and said her family will hate me for this. So I reminded her that I let Sammy and his family move in, which is something her own family refused to do, so she should start with shaming or blaming them for not taking their own son and nieces and granddaughters in. If it was not for her family's unwillingness to help, we would not be dealing with this much disturbance at home. Everyone's been giving me and Zoe silent treatment. My wife is very much upset over this. I think this is a messed up situation. My opinion on this one is not the a-hole. I stand firmly on that. But if we don't have the same opinion or you don't agree, that's totally cool. Just drop your thoughts in the comment section so we can talk about it. The next comment we're going to look at is the one that got the highlighted comment. It states, "Not the a-hole, do not back down. You are the only one sticking up for Zoe. If her cousins wants to use expensive makeup, give them your wife's. I guarantee she won't appreciate sharing anymore. They need to start behaving like appreciative guests." Comment 2 says, "I love that idea, not the a-hole." So let me know your thoughts on that and this whole process with the makeup. Drop your opinions down below, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope each and every one of you have an amazing day, and just remember one thing. It's cool to be kind.